Topo Athletic is committed to lifelong health and better movement. Topo builds running shoes for those who get out there every day regardless of weather, speed, energy, or mood. Their distinctive fit and feel combines instinctive human movement with modern performance and lightweight comfort to help you keep going, keep trying, and keep moving. Discover the Topo difference and step into a run experience unlike any other. Hey everybody, welcome to the 109th episode of the Run, Try, Bike Fireside Chats. We are going to have a special guest today. Her name is Jamii North, and that is Jamii, better to see you with North, North, like the direction. So we're going to have Jamii come on here in a second, join us. We're going to talk to her about her start in coaching, which was back in 2020, right before the pandemic, which tells you what kind of resilience she has. She has been in multisport since 2012 and began, a transition into duathlon in 2016. And she coaches athletes with a focus on women who are in the perimenopausal stage of life, with a major focus on strength training. So we're going to talk to her about her coaching philosophy. We're going to talk to her about an upcoming world championship that she'll be attending in Omaha, Nebraska for duathlon, and how she got there and sort of her expectations for that. And then, of course, like every fireside chat that we host, we will be finishing it up with some rapid fire questions around food. So without any further ado, I'm going to bring Jamii forward. Hey, Jamii, how are you?
Hi, Jason. Great. How are you doing tonight?
I am fantastic. I didn't mention in the intro that you did join me for a Fiery Embers back on April 26th. So for those of you that are watching this now, make sure you go back there. It's a little bit more tongue-in-cheek than, the hard-hitting Pulitzer Prize-winning journalism I'm about to unload on you here. You ready for that kind of stuff?
Bring it.
But before we get started in diving into what I finished up there with going to Omaha, Nebraska for the World Championships, is you started coaching you started multisport in 2012 and veered into duathlon and have been racing that since 2016. Give us some insight into how you got started in 2012. What was the catalyst to get you into multisport?
Oh my gosh. So my background's obviously in the strength training and rehab side of stuff, but I was dabbling with some of my clients wanted to do triathlons, and they asked me if I would coach them in addition to doing their strength training. So it's like, all right, sure, no problem. Let's get you moving for that. And after a little while, one of my clients asked me if I wanted to participate in the activity with her. I was like, well, sure, why not? I'm coaching you guys to do this. Why not give it a try? I'd run before and done things for endurance, but never actually competed. So I thought, yeah, sure. So I actually said, you know what, you pick the race and then I'll train you for it. We'll get you ready for it. I let her choose it. And she tells me, okay, I chose the race. You're going to love it. I picked an Ironman distance. I'm like, whoa, wait a minute, hold on. Your first race, you want to go Ironman, and you want me to do it with you. And I've never done one of these before.
And this was going to be your first race too, correct?
It would have been that was my first dabbling into triathlon. So luckily I had 9 months to prep, because I was like, when did you schedule this for? So we had the 9 months to get ready for it. And that's how I got into it, because a client asked me to join and I said yes.
I got to tell you, at least the people that asked me to participate in my first triathlon chose a sprint. That was hard enough. So did you know anything about Ironman? I mean, based on your reaction, you kind of had an idea already of what the distances were?
I understood what the distances were, yeah, but I had no idea how to train for it. And I hadn't swam since I was in high school. So I'm like...
So what did you do? I mean, you got 9 months. Did you run and go and do research on what to train? Did you hire a coach? What was the process like for you in that moment?
It was, okay, I need to really learn how to swim. So that was the first thing, was find a place where I could go swim. So I signed up for a membership at 24 Hour Fitness, because it had the best access as far as scheduling wise. I'd already been riding and racing bicycles at that point. So I had a bit of endurance in the cycling. And then back in high school and college, I ran. So I had some background in that. I bought a lot of books, started reading about triathlon, started talking to people, started, let's see, I was going to join a club and then decided not to. I don't exactly remember what happened, but just basically trying to absorb as much as I could on how I actually put these three sports together, because I hadn't done that before.
How did it go?
Myself or for my quad.
How'd the training go first? Before we get into the race, how'd the training go?
The training was tough. The swim was
sounds like an understatement.
Part. What's that?
That sounds like an understatement.
Oh gosh, yeah. The swim was definitely the hardest part for me and for my client too. Just getting enough time in the pool, getting enough time in open water, and it turned out the race that we were doing was in a river, so I wouldn't have to worry too much about like the big waves and stuff. But we did have to worry about current. So that actually was nicer, and it wasn't freezing cold like most races can be out here in California.
Yeah, for those of you who don't know, Jamie is in Northern California. So was the first one Vineman?
Yes.
Yeah, so, which has been discontinued, but they've brought back or announced, launched, whatever you want to call it, Ironman California, which takes place in Sacramento, which is still in Northern California. I believe they swim in the Russian River, and they're racing October 27th. So it's going to be cold water, presumably.
Hear about that? October might be warm by then. Warmer.
Okay.
Yeah, because it's still in the river, but we'll see. I do have a couple athletes training for that right now, so yeah.
Fantastic. I will more than likely see you up there because, as you know, Adam Toure of Lucid Motion Fitness, we and he are partnering on following some athletes as they go through the training with him to Ironman California. And so we're going to go up there and bring our GoPros and try to get some footage and share some stories of the athletes as we follow them through their journey from today, basically, all the way through to the event at the end of October.
Awesome. Nice.
So was your path to multi-sport coaching driven by this idea that, hey, I'm getting tossed into this sort of no idea concept of racing and training for an Ironman, and you were like, other people must be doing this too, I can probably help them? Is that how the coaching thing came about?
Yeah. So that one client wanted to do the race. I joined her, and then I realized that there just wasn't a lot of support for women, just in general, aside from even the perimenopause, postmenopause stages. There just wasn't a whole lot of information out there. It was all, research is done on men, and usually collegiate age men. And so it just wasn't really trickling over. And right or shortly after that time, I had listened to talk by Dr. Stacy Sims on women are not small men. I've taken her courses and all that kind of stuff, and just kind of learned the differences. And I was like, you know what? I can really help these women participate and feel better and learn how to train with their cycle instead of fighting against everything and always feeling cruddy. So that's kind of how it developed. And then, over the years, just kind of continuing to follow her information. And then that whole stuff came out with the research on the peri and postmenopause, and really kind of learning about that. I was like, oh my gosh, I really need to share this information, because it's just, you just don't hear people talking about it. And it's different. It's definitely different for older women in the way that they need to train in order to train and feel strong and feel good and not get overworked and all that kind of fun stuff.
Have there been other people that have taken up the torch in the path that Dr. Stacy Sims has forged with the idea that, well, it's not an idea, with the reality that women are not small men? Have there been other people that have come around to continue to foster this idea? Because we hear her name often, and it's for good reason, but that's a lot of heavy lifting for a single person, right? For an entire gender, for one person to carry an entire gender. Are there others out there that you know of that are talking about this concept and this idea and this reality that women are not small men?
Yeah, absolutely. There's a lot of other great information out there. Another one of the big ones is Feisty Media. They do a lot of it's women's focused, but they also have their Feisty Menopause, which is all, and they've been doing a great job sharing information. They do a good job of kind of taking the information, that the science, that deep science that Dr. Sims talks about, and applying it and kind of helping you understand how you do this stuff. And that's kind of what I do as well, is helping people understand, okay, well, I just heard her say X, Y, and Z, but what does that really mean? So that's kind of where I step in and try to help my people.
It's so funny that you say that's what I do too, because your face lit up when you use the words deep science. Like, you lit up. That clearly is an indication that you love doing the research, diving into it, making heads or tails of that stuff. Whereas a person like myself, not for nothing, doesn't give a shit. Like, if you tell me to run at, zone 4 for 10 minutes, I'm just going to run at zone 4 for 10 minutes. I'm not going to ask you why. I presume you as the coach did all the work and I don't need to, right? So, and this kind of leads me into the question about your coaching philosophy. If you could summarize your coaching philosophy up in just a handful of sentences, what would it be?
I have been struggling with that because it's just this very all-encompassing. We've been working with business coach on it, and I still haven't been able to nail it down. But essentially, my belief is that if you're consistent with your training, you're willing to adapt to the way that your body changes, and that's for everybody. And I work with men and women. You need to learn how to adapt with your body, and that adaptability leads into learning about what your body is telling you. And so that's kind of my training philosophy in a nutshell: is let's work on your consistency over time, not just 1 month or 3 month segment, but let's see how you do over 6, 9, 12 months, couple of years, build you up. And through that time, you're going to be learning more, just being able to read your body and be able to tell me, is in addition to you feeling what's going on, being able to tell me what it is that's going on so that I can help you better.
So how do you get your athletes to give you that deep information, right? Because I coach, and I'm self-coached for myself, and there are moments where my hip might, have a little niggle in it, but I'm ignoring it, right? And I know athletes go through that same scenario where their hip or their toe or whatever it might be has a little niggle in it that could impact their training, and yet they're not telling you about it. So how do you go about getting your athletes to, put all their cards on the table, for lack of a better phrase, and show you, like, look, my ankle is this, my hip is that, I didn't sleep well last night, like give you the full show and cards so that you can then adjust their training so that they're getting the most out of your expertise?
Yeah, that's a great question. A lot of it comes down to when I sit down and do the intake with them. I sit down, we talk about what it is their needs are. I talk about what it is that I do and what I provide, and I also talk about my expectations of them. They have to check into their training peaks, make sure their stuff is logged in. And while you're in there, there's a place for notes. Let me know what you're feeling, how you're responding to it. Many of them wear an Aura ring or the Move. Is it the Move? I forget the Whoop. So they also have their sleep scores and their HRVs. So there's a lot of information that I look at to kind of get that information from them. But it's a lot about just when we meet, letting them know that these are the expectations, and if that's not something you're into, then we kind of either part ways or figure out how we can make it happen.
Yeah, I mean, there's so much data today, right? So much data, and people can get overwhelmed by it. I have an athlete that I coach. He's training for his first Ironman in Maryland at the end of September, and he gets so caught up in the data himself. Hey, my watts were, 3 watts less than last week. And, it's just like all the minutia type stuff that is overwhelming for him. When you have an athlete who is trying to interpret the data along with you and is like, hey, I see that, my power output is 3 watts less than it was last week. The sky must be falling right now. And the reality is you maybe you didn't sleep as well as you did. Maybe you had a few less calories than you normally do. Did you drink while you were riding? Like a million different scenarios can take place that might lead to that real minuscule drop, right?
Mm-hmm.
How do you work with an athlete that way? Because the other part of this too, one of the things that we see here at Run Try Bike is the desire, I guess is the right word to use, to impress the social media followers.
Oh gosh, yeah.
Right. Yeah. See, and so when you're trying to impress the social media followers, as opposed to focusing on your own performance, that's going to lead you to your own finish line. How do you work, with and around and potentially through that with the athletes that you're training and coaching?
Yeah, that's a tough one. And it really comes down to just reminding them that, like you had said, things aren't always going to be exactly the same every day. And so there could be the slightest little thing could be different one day that's causing your watts, like you said, to be down a couple of points. It's instead of looking at the tiny little data points, what I tell them is we need to look at the trends over time. Are we trending up? Are we staying stable? Are we trending down? And then once we figured out what that trend is over time, over a bigger period of time, weeks and months, then we can say, oh, okay, yeah, this is looking right. Or, oh, yeah, you probably didn't sleep well that day. Or maybe you ate something that didn't agree with you. We all have those moments. Oh, that looks good.
More than
Exactly. So it's just trying to reassure them that everything's going to be okay. It's just a couple of watts, and let's move on to the next workout, because the added stress can affect that next workout. And so let's leave it behind, move on.
Yeah, it's an interesting phenomenon, because the other part of this, and we're talking about social media, most people go to Instagram, Facebook, TikTok, that kind of stuff, but Strava is one of those things. Oh, the face, I just saw the eye roll. For those of you that are listening on the podcast, Jamie rolled her eyes so hard, they almost went out of her skull when I mentioned Strava.
I got caught up in that in the beginning myself. I'll admit it.
It's hard not to. It's hard not to. I remember when I was on Strava, I dropped off about 3 or 4 years ago, and because it just felt like it was another thing to maintain. And it was like, I look at my Garmin data; it's the same data that's in Strava. Like, no, Strava doesn't take my data and give it some sort of like conversion percentage. It's the same data. Garmin owns it too, right? It's the same thing. But I remember seeing an athlete way back when who would put, easy run. And when you open the data box, everything was like zone 4 and zone 5. And I was like, that's not an easy run. I don't care how you try to phrase it. Like you're pushing yourself way harder than you need to. And I think Strava, tends to have that scenario in which people just get so caught up in trying to impress the other person. And it's unnecessary. So when you mentioned that you got caught up in Strava, what was that like for you, and how did you break free of it?
Oh gosh, yeah, it was a long time ago when I was stronger than I am now. And so, you get the PRs and you get the first place trophies and the QOMs and whatnot. And then all of a sudden I was like, oh my gosh, that's all I'm training for. And I wasn't focusing on my own racing. I'm like, okay, there's something wrong here. I'm not racing for this. I'm racing for this. So and I still catch myself every now and then when I, load my stuff up, because I still keep it. And, it'll pop up, oh, you got a PR. Oh, that's nice. Okay, don't. It's just one of those things. You just got to let it go.
Yeah. I've just recently moved to Los Angeles, and I don't know any of the bike routes out here. And so one of the things I was going to do is join Strava to get bike routes, and essentially just be one of those things where Garmin would upload the data and I just wouldn't use it for anything other than finding bike routes out here, because I know that it can then become a second job, right? You start looking at what people are doing, you start comparing your own data. I remember, I'm sure they still have it, where it would show you your pace on a particular route and your own personal best of on particular routes, right?
Yeah.
And so that was one of the features I actually loved about it was if I ran this loop once a week, once every 2 weeks, I could see what my training was helping me with. And that's one of the features that I really liked about Strava. But I do know that you can get extremely caught up in the external validation that probably means nothing in the long run, right? Like, okay, great, I hit a PR on this, 2-mile stretch, but how is that helping me when I'm going to race a 200-mile race, right? Like, they're not one and the same.
You'll be the first one to the aid station. Yes.
And then I got to practice my speed through the aid station. Speaking of which, right? So transition is a big part of duathlon. It's a big part of triathlon. Do you work with your athletes when you're coaching them on, setting up a transition if they're in the sprint Olympic distance for those sports, or how to get through, or even I guess a 70.3 as well, and then how to get through transitions at an Ironman distance event? Do you work with your athletes on that? What does that look like?
Yeah, absolutely. So I've got two kind of groups of athletes. So I coach the Silicon Valley Tri Club Team Accelerate, and then I also have my own personal athletes. And with the Silicon Valley Tri Club, we actually put on some clinics throughout the year. So we'll get a group of them together, and we'll just tell them, okay, these are all the things you need to bring. And then we're just going to sit down. We're going to talk about transition. We're going to set the transition up, and then we're going to set you off. We've even done it where we've had a practice try. So they were actually in the water and they were able to take their wetsuits off to practice the transition. But before we get to that, we'll do just the one where they don't have the wetsuit on. They come into transition. What's the first thing you do? How do you maintain? How do you go through the process? And then, reminding them that you can't touch the bike until you got your helmet on. It has to be snapped, all these things. Otherwise you get, penalties and whatnot. And they're like, no way. I'm like, yes, the yes way. and reminding them about, once you get out of transition, where is that line? Don't get on the bike until you cross that line. Again, you could get, penalty. They're like, more penalties? Yeah, there's rules. You got to follow them. So yeah, we sit down, we practice them. And then same thing with my clients. I'll set up a transition someplace where it's out of the way and we can have them come in and come out and just go over it. And then the other part of it too is we actually we call it the Brick Madness. So it's a run, bike, run, bike, run, bike, run day where they just they can do up to that many. Yeah.
Wow. Like I was a big fan of the triple brick back in the day when I was training for my Ironman. I do a triple brick about once a month. And it was about a 20-mile bike ride and a 2-mile run 3 times, right? So you end up with basically 100K on the bike and a 10K run when it was all said and done. But a quad, man, just thinking back on it, like the third one was always such a ass whooping. Like trying to do a fourth one, wow.
Yeah. So they get lots of practice.
Clearly, it's amazing. So speaking of transitions, what's the hardest or worst transition you've ever had to endure? And I will answer that question myself, so you have time to think about it. It was during the U.S. Open. I was living in Dallas, Texas, and the race was in Rockwall, Texas. And it was the U.S. Open brought by Toyota or something to that effect. And I think it was a Hilton hotel where the transition bike rack. So you come out of Lake Rockwell and you run to your transition bike, and I guess you had choices. You could get on the bike right then and there and try to climb this like super steep driveway, or just run the bike up the hill, up the driveway and get out onto a flatter surface. And, the first year I clipped in and I'm struggling to get up that hill, and, I see people dropping chains left and right. And so the second year I was like, there's no way I'm going to do that again. So I just ran my bike all the way up the hill, up the driveway until I got on a flatter section, and it was much easier, right? And it was probably faster too, not for nothing. But that has to be the hardest / worst transition I can ever recall participating in when it comes to the sport of triathlon. Do you have anything like that?
Yeah, that's tough. I would say probably during my my Iron-distance event. So you come out of the water. That was the longest I'd ever swum. I hadn't even done that long of a swim in practice. So I get up and I'm standing up going, oh my gosh, I'm spinning. And I didn't know that they had someone that takes your wetsuit off for you. So as I'm spinning, all of a sudden I get thrown to the ground. I'm like, what just happened? And people are yanking me and pulling me. And next thing you know, they lift me up and shove me. I'm like, what the? I'm full of dirt because it was a muddy area there. So, and they're like, go to your bike. I'm like, okay, because you race brain and whatnot. get on my bike, try to get out of transition, and it was one of those ones where it had a little bit of an uphill. And at that time, I hadn't thought ahead that I need to put my bike in the right gear to get up this hill. So I'm just grinding. Luckily, it was a short hill, but I was like grinding. This sucks. What am I doing? And you're only half into the race already, going, oh. That'd be my worst one.
You reminded me when you said the wetsuit stripper. So I raced the inaugural Ironman Chattanooga in 2014, I think it was the year. And it was a downriver. It's a downriver swim, and that river is moving. So at the practice swim the day before, I went and I swam, and I don't remember the split for the 500 yards, but it was so fast. I was like, that didn't feel like anything. I need to do this again. It was like a Disney ride. So I ran up to the thing and jumped in the water again for the next 500 yards or whatever. But the next day, the river was flowing so fast that the hardest part was not swallowing water as it washed over you when you turn to breathe, and avoiding the buoys, the markers, and not smashing into them like, wipe out with the balls. It was crazy. It was so fast. So I get out of the water, and I'm probably like a 130, 135 swimmer for iron distance. I get out of the water sub 1 hour, and I looked at my watch, and I'm like, that can't be right. Like, it just can't be right. And so I'm running down the little section there to get to transition, and I just see this person. They've got a volunteer shirt on, so I throw myself on the floor. She looks shocked. She rips the wetsuit off me, hands it to me, and she goes, by the way, the wetsuit strippers are like another 100 yards down this path. Like, she was just a volunteer walking. Like you said, racing, right? Like, I had no 58 minutes for me. I'm like out of the water 38 minutes ahead of schedule. It was the craziest swim ever. It was bananas.
Wow.
It was moving so fast. I went back, I think it was 4 years later, and they actually had to cancel the swim because the river was moving so fast. Like, it gets to the point where it'd be dangerous. Like, I half jokingly said they'd have to set up a net to just catch all those swimmers who couldn't make the left-hand turn to get to shore with, and make sure they didn't end up, halfway down I don't even know what river that is. In Chattanooga, but yeah, that's nuts when you're moving that fast,
Whoa.
So speaking of big events, you've got one coming up here in Omaha, Nebraska, the World Championships. You've qualified for the duathlon event. How did you wind up qualifying for the World Championships at duathlon?
So I realized I should have corrected you on this. This one's the national championships.
National championships.
Yeah. Sadly, there's no pre-qualifications right now because they're still trying to build back up from COVID. But back when I qualified in 2016, it was because I won a race, and so I got an email from USAT. They're like, "You qualified for nationals." So that's how it happened before. But now it's just kind of an open invitation until they get enough people where it's they can kind of start limiting the numbers.
So why is it important for you to participate in this event when you could participate in any duathlon, especially one that's not halfway across the country?
A lot of the big, so part of the problem out here in California is a lot of the smaller companies went out of business during COVID. So there's just not a lot of races here anymore. There's the big races, but very few do the short sprints and Olympic distances. And so it's one, a chance to be able to participate in that. And two, it's a chance to participate with some of the other really strong racers. So there's a few women that are coming to it this year who've been coming for a long time. One woman specifically who I believe has won her age group every year that she's done it. And she's in my age group again this year. So it's just competing is really good. What's that?
What's her name?
Kirsten Sass.
All right, Kirsten Sass. This is the year you come in second.
Oh. Oh my goodness. That'd be pretty cool.
So it's an opportunity for you to put your best up against the best, especially Kirsten, and just kind of see where you're at. Is this a measuring stick for you in terms of where you need to improve, where you need to get stronger, so that when and if it comes around to qualifying again, you know where your weaknesses lie and you can strengthen those and then continue to harness the stronger parts of your racing ability?
Absolutely. Absolutely. This is definitely, because there's such a high level of participants that show up, you really have to bring your A game for this. And so it really helps to show me where my strengths are. And, you know, with only 2 sports, running and cycling, it's wonder that you got a 50-50 chance on which one's going to be good, but it pushes me every time I come out. And I feel like, I like to be pushed, and I like to have a reason to push. I can push myself, but it's just nice to have that kind of external, oh, I got to show up, and I've got to, you know, I've got to push harder if I want to compete against these other women. And so, I mean, the nice thing is that this national championships does qualify you for the worlds. So this is a chance to qualify for worlds. And I did do that in 2018, qualified for worlds and went and participated, and that was a blast.
Where was that held?
That was held in Odense, Denmark.
Super fantastic. Yeah. So if you qualify in Omaha, Nebraska for the World Championships, where might you be headed?
I think I heard someone say it's in Spain next year. So you qualify for the following year. I believe it's Spain or Portugal.
You need to beat Kirsten so that you can get some paella out in Spain.
Nice. I think it's the top 3 per age group is how it goes at nationals. So. Oh
yeah. All right. So Kirsten, if you end up in first, that's okay. Jamie will get to Spain on her own.
That's right. That's right.
Have you had traditional Spanish paella?
That's a great question. There's a place out here that does paella, and I believe it was traditional. What's the traditional? Yeah. Yeah,
traditional typically has a lot of seafood in it, right? Octopus and mussels and clams, and typically rabbit. Here in the States, they will use chicken oftentimes, which is, you know, interchangeable, and obviously it's rice, and it's fantastic. And then if you're able to go to Portugal and get paella in Portugal, it's a little bit more soupy than the paella in Spain, which is more of a rice dish type of thing. But if you qualify, you've got to do the training there in Northern California on eating the paella, so that when you go to Spain, you're ready to go.
Nice big portion.
Yeah. By the way, I'm not sure why I don't host a food podcast.
Oh my God. That would be fun. Let's do it.
Yeah. Have you seen our Food Fight Friday at the aid stations that we've done with Adam Lee of Community Trail Running and myself?
No, I keep meaning to catch that.
All right. So wherever you get your podcast, Apple, Spotify, or go check it out on our YouTube channel. So we basically do a game in the vein of Fuck, Marry, Kill called Eat, Carry, or Toss. And so you get 3 food products that you have to choose from. And the first episode I did with Adam, I offered him the 3 choices were a bowl of sauerkraut, a bowl of baked beans, or a 2-day-old baguette. And he had to eat, carry, or toss each of those things. And so the next episode, we do 2 a month. The next episode was all Canadian choices because he's from Vancouver, Canada. And he gave me the choices of a Nanaimo bar, which is a chocolate bar with coconut and all kinds of other goodies in there. Poutine, but with shredded cheese as opposed to cheese curds, which is traditional. And then the last option was candied salmon from a landlocked province called Saskatchewan. And so you have to eat, carry, or toss those items. So it's a blast. They're each 10 minutes long at best. So, excuse me, head over there and listen to that podcast so you can get some good laughter while you're doing your next training runs.
For sure.
What are your goals and expectations for Omaha, Nebraska, and the duathlon national championships?
Yeah, that's a great question. I've got 3 races that I'm competing in. One of them is the traditional sprint distance. It's draft legal. And then I've got 2 others that they're calling it super sprint, which is even shorter. And my goal is to have even better transitions on those. Because the race is so short, it really does come down to the transition on these 2 shorter races. So I need to make sure that I stay completely focused coming into those transitions and don't mess up a single thing. In and out in under 30 seconds.
So draft legal triathlon. So were we talking about 500-meter swimming, 12-mile bike?
So they do have a triathlon too for it. So it's a short one for the super sprint. It's like 200-meter swim, 5K bike, 2.5K run. For the
but that's not what you're doing. You're doing all duathlon in all of these.
Yeah.
Oh, wow. So then what is it? Like what's the setup for each of these distances? Super sprint is going to be what? How short is the run?
Super short. So the super sprint is a 1K run, a 5K bike, and a 1K run. It is just like on fire. Yeah.
But I have those sprint legs going from the first step.
Yep. I gotta make sure I get my warm up in before that race.
No kidding, right? Man, that is blasting right out of the gate. Like I was just on Twitter earlier today, and we were talking about the 5K versus the 100-mile and how in a 5K, like you've got to be at 60 miles an hour from step 1. Otherwise, the whole race is lost, basically. But in this distance, 1K, what's the bike distance?
5K.
5K and then 1K, right? So, I mean, you cannot blink, and otherwise the race is gone, right?
Yeah. Sure. Yeah.
So what do you do to train for something like that? Are you just going to the track and doing, 400, 800-meter sprints constantly?
There's definitely a focus on the shorter intervals for me. I've been doing a lot of 3x2 where it's 3 minutes at, high threshold, 2-minute recovery, repeat that I started off with two or three repeats. And then at my max, I had it up to 10 repeats. That was fun. Good. But yeah, just really focusing on the high end, and then on the weekends, still making sure that I'm getting my endurance rides. So I still do 2.5 hour rides on the weekends. I don't need to be doing like, a half iron person where they're going out for 4 hours plus. It's a bit shorter. But yeah, a lot more of that high intensity, shorter stuff during the week for sure.
And then the normal sprint distance for the duathlon is what?
5K run, 40K. Sorry, 5K run, 20K bike, 2.5K run.
Amazing. And then the sprint distance. So you're doing a sprint and an Olympic distance, correct?
A sprint and a super sprint.
Okay, but you said 3 events. So what's the third event?
The third event is the super sprint team medley. So it's 4 people. I know it's new. When I saw it on this year, I was like, oh, I've got to give this a try. So it's 2 men, 2 women. And we alternate, but we all still have to do all 3 events. So you do run, bike, run, hand your tag off to the next person. They go run, bike, run. Then the next person run, bike, run. And the 4th person run, bike, run. And it's based on your total age. So the age of all 4 of us is our age category. And then they score it by that.
So how did you find your 3 teammates? And every one of them like 18 years old, or are they all much older? So you put yourself in an older category. Like, how did you strategize on this?
I wanted to put a team together for the duathlon. I couldn't find anyone local. But USA Triathlon puts together a list of everybody who's registered. So they sent out an email and everyone could see who was registered and who had like a team that needed one more or who just wasn't on a team. And we could kind of look and try to put teams together. I put a team together and then one person dropped out. And then the next day we got an email from you team. I was like, whatever. I looked at it and I checked the people out that they assigned me to, and I feel bad for them because they're all in 60 to 69 category and I'm 40 to 49. And they all said that they were like national champs. So I'm thinking, oh, I'm gonna change their age group, and now they're not gonna. I'm like, oh, so now
pressure is on.
I know, like, oh shoot.
Really show up ready to go.
Exactly.
They're gonna haze you if you don't perform to your level as the young one in the group.
Exactly. I'm like, okay, all right, here we go. I'll sleep well that night.
Have you been in conversation with them throughout this entire process since you got assigned the team? Like,
yeah. So as soon as I got the email, I reached out to all of them. I was like, hey, just wondering if you guys want to just kind of introduce ourselves to one another, so we have because we haven't met yet. It was literally just an email. I'm like, let's meet before we meet. And then when are you guys all coming in? So they're all going to be there on Wednesday next week. So we'll try to all meet up and just get to know each other a little bit.
This is awesome. Like, good on you for being like, you know what, let's try this out and see what happens and let's have fun with it. You know, like, for all you know, you might end up with 3 of the best friends you've ever had from this, you know, assignment of a team as opposed to picking and choosing teammates.
Yeah, exactly. And I follow, what's it called? Now I'm forgetting the name of it. They do it in Europe, and it's that short triathlon stuff. Oh, why am I forgetting right now?
Oh,
Super League.
Yes, Super League.
The short stuff. I follow that, and then when I saw this on the thing, I was like, oh my gosh, it's kind of like Super League. This is awesome. I've got to give it a try, because they just look like they're just suffering. And, you know, I like to suffer every now and then. So
we just got a comment on Instagram from Badwater06, and they said, I'd like to be on a triathlon team. So does USAT offer these opportunities at their events to participate on a team, do you know? And or does Ironman, I know with Ironman they have relay teams, because I've been on one at Indian Wells a couple of years ago. So I know that is an opportunity with Ironman distance events. Does USAT have that opportunity at multiple events that they host, do you know?
They do it for the national championships now that they've got the team stuff, but I don't know if they do it for races that are USAT sanctioned. I think that generally comes from the actual company that's putting on the race. I think that's how you would do it. Or
yeah, that would be my guess. My guess. That would be my guess through the RD, and whether or not they're allowing that type of scenario to happen.
Yeah.
So Jamie, it's been a blast. Before we jump into our rapid fire food questions, as we devolve into a food podcast here in a moment, tell the people who are listening on the podcast or end up watching this on YouTube where they can get in touch with you, get to know you, and potentially bring you on as their coach.
Yeah, awesome. Yeah. So website is coachjamienorth.com. Super easy. Instagram is at Coach Jamii North. So kept it simple. Those are the 2 best places to find me. I check those out. I check in on them often. So.
By the way, that is Jamie with 2 eyes, the better to see you with, as she told me in the green room, and she missed her perfect marketing opportunity just now to sell her services. So I'm picking up the slack for her. That's Jamie, Jamii North, and check her out. She's a blast. Like I said, she was on our Fire Ambers about a month ago on April 26th. We had a great time there. Every time I talk to Jamie, I end up laughing and having just a grand old time with her. So if you bring her on as a coach, I'm sure that'll happen too. With that being said, are you ready for our, and I say rapid fire, but take your time to think about it and throw in your answers however you see fit. Are you ready?
Bring it.
So the big thing around our company is pineapple on pizza. By the way, for those of you that are listening, Om is in New York City right now, and I just got back from New York City. And he went to a place that I used to go to as a kid in Inwood called Pizza Palace on Dykeman. And I could not stop laughing at the idea that he went there, but he didn't have pineapple on pizza. So, Jamie, pineapple on pizza as a Northern Californian, is that a yay or a nay? And don't worry if we end the conversation that fast based on your answer.
It is a nay.
Yes. Yes.
No,
take that, California Pizza Kitchen, right in the garbage.
Bye.
You know, I gotta tell you, like, first of all, if you enjoy pineapple on pizza, eat it. Don't listen to this schmuck from New York, okay? Enjoy it. But I've recently been told people are like, how about pickles on pizza? And I'm like, why are you trying to make it worse? Why can't we just eat pizza?
Oh, yeah, veggies and meat and keep it simple.
Keep it simple. It's 3 things: crust, sauce, and cheese. You want to put some pepperoni on it? Go nuts. But you don't need to put anything else.
Definitely not.
Crazy. And I wouldn't call myself a traditionalist, and I'll ask you if you're a traditionalist, but I'm going to give you this example as to why I bring this up. The other day, I saw somebody talking about chocolate hummus, and I'm like, why? Like, why? The chocolate is one thing, hummus is another. They don't need to be together. Like, why are we trying to invent stuff now? I'm not a traditionalist, but that stuff needs to not be there. Your face tells me that chocolate hummus would not be a thing.
No, sweet and savory in that style. No, just.
All right, let's go on to the next question. Oreos. Are you a fan of the traditional? Are you a fan of the double stuff? Do you go with this thing that they call a thin, which is really just a cracker? Or do you go with this thing called a cakester, which is really a devil dog in disguise? So which of the 4 options are you going with when it comes to Oreo?
I'm going to go with the traditional original Oreo. Simple Oreo, give it a little spin, eat the middle, chew on the cookies. That's my answer.
You had me until the spin and eat the middle. That seems very inefficient when you could just put the whole thing in your mouth at once. Are you a dunker? Do you dunk?
Oh, I have been told that I am not just a dunker. I like dunk and dip stuff. So I come out, whatever it is I have in my hand is like a spoon to me. So if I've got some hummus in front of me and I got a chip, it is going to be a big old spoonful. So
when you get ready to have Oreos and milk, you go out and get a spoon so you can dunk it all the way in there and submerge it?
Yeah. It'll sit in there for a while, take a bite, and drink it the same. Yeah.
A while? So you like the soggy cookie then?
Yeah, because it drips into the milk and it flavors the milk chocolatey.
Have you ever tried chocolate milk and dunking the Oreo into chocolate milk?
Not the same.
Fantastic, not the same. I gotta put that on a t-shirt.
Oh my gosh.
Licorice. Are you a fan of licorice? Yes or no?
Oh yes.
Red or black?
Black.
Ooh, so you're a fan of like anise, right?
Love it.
Do you use it as a straw?
Oh heck yeah. What I used to use it with, like Sprite or ginger ale or something like that with the anise. Oh, that is good.
My favorite kind of person, the one who plays with their food.
Always.
Oh, Badwater06 talked about your choice of Oreo cookies being dipped in the milk, and it says, sounds like a craving a pregnant woman might have. Oh no, maybe that was about the pickles. That could probably be about the pickles.
Yeah.
I'm gonna catch up on the comments. Okay, so you're ready to make a peanut butter and jelly sandwich. Do you eat peanut butter and jelly sandwiches, first of all?
I do.
Okay, so when you make a peanut butter and jelly sandwich, you have 2 slices of bread. Do you go peanut butter and jelly on one slice and then smash them together? Or do you go peanut butter on one slice, jelly on another slice, and then smash them together?
Yeah, I do it 1 and 1 and then bring the sandwich together. Oh, yeah.
And so then how do you cut your sandwich? I'm going to give you 4 options. Do you go 4 squares, 4 triangles, 2 rectangles, or 2 triangles?
I go with the 2 rectangles. Right down the middle.
Straight down the middle. We had Shannon Mick on, and then this got to be close to a year ago at this point, but I bring it up every time I ask this question because it was the most amazing answer I've ever heard on how you cut your peanut butter and jelly sandwich and how you eat it. She cuts it into rectangles, but then she turns the bread so that she holds the crust and eats it like corn on the cob so she doesn't eat the crust. Fascinating, right?
Sounds like something I would have done as a kid.
It's so amazing. I was blown away by this answer. Never would have thought about it. And she's like, I just didn't want to. I was like, why don't you cut the crust off if you don't want to eat the crust? She said, but then you might get the jelly on your hands, and hard to argue with that thinking, right?
Totally. Oh my gosh.
I may cut it in 4 triangles so that it's like having tapas. You can be fancy. Peanut butter and jelly tapas. All right. What is your favorite flavor of ice cream?
Ooh, favorite flavor of ice cream would be, I think I gotta go with the mint chocolate chip.
Oh, so good.
Mm-hmm.
I saw a hero walk out of Sprouts last week. It was late in the evening. It was like 7, 8 o'clock at night. He was walking out with coffee chip gelato as well as mint chip gelato.
Oh.
Champion. Dude was a champion. I actually told him, I'm like, you're my hero right now. He could not stop.
What it was amazing. That's awesome. Yeah, that sounds good too.
Favorite candy bar?
Favorite candy bar. Ooh. What is that one? The Heath. Nice toffee with dark chocolate. Mm-hmm.
The Underdog Heath bar coming out.
Ooh.
You like the toffee. That doesn't give you any issues when that toffee gets stuck in your teeth. You're like, yeah, bring it on.
Bring it. Exactly. I just sit there. If it gets stuck, I just sit there and enjoy it as it melts away.
Is red velvet cake a real flavor, or is it just chocolate cake dressed up to go to the prom?
Oh, it is. It is definitely a prom date.
Right? People are like, oh, it's so fantastic. I'm like, you're paying like a 300% surcharge on chocolate cake. Come on, man.
It's been dyed a little red here. It tastes the same.
It's nonsensical. They're like, oh, but I love the buttercream frosting. I'm like, have a piece of carrot cake. It tastes better. It's got the buttercream, cream cheese frosting, whatever it is. It's so much better. And you won't get the surcharge.
Exactly. Ugh.
Are you a fan of carrot cake?
I do. I like carrot cake. No nuts, though. No nuts in my carrot cake.
No nuts? What about raisins?
Raisins are okay. Yeah, raisins fine.
What about pineapple in your carrot cake?
Not so much.
Not so much. Raisins are in. So are you a fan of oatmeal raisin cookies?
I do like oatmeal raisin cookies.
And why do you think they're better than chocolate chip cookies?
Wait a minute here. Did I say that?
No, it's just me putting words in your mouth because I think they're better than chocolate chip cookies.
If it's nice and soft, that's a good cookie.
I remember when I was a kid, my mother used to get these oatmeal raisin cookies that were iced. They had like little icing across the top. They were hard as shit. I mean, they could have been used as doorstops, but they were so, I don't know, that icing made everything so much better.
That's awesome. There was something like that, like it was 2 oatmeal cookies with the cream in the middle of it, like little Debbie, something like that. I used to like those. Yummy.
When I finished Ironman Chattanooga in 2014, Little Debbie was the sponsor. They might still be the sponsor. And I was like, I cannot wait to get oatmeal cream pies. Like, I cannot wait to finish this race for some oatmeal cream pies. Finish the race. No oatmeal cream pies. They didn't have any. They had, for some reason, they decided that this was going to be the moment where they had to have peanut butter cream pies. So instead of the white cream in there, they had the peanut butter one. And I'm like, dude, I just finished a 12-hour race. I don't need to eat healthy right now. Like, just give me the junk.
The sugar, yeah.
Badwater 06 says oatmeal raisin cookies must have a strong spice. Don't disagree with you at all. Don't disagree with you at all. That cinnamon has to be noticeable in order for the oatmeal raisin cookie to be valid.
Mm-hmm. True.
Candy corn. Is candy corn a real candy, or is it just earwax covered in sugar?
Oh my gosh, earwax covered in sugar. I like that. Yeah, that's definitely earwax or kid potential for shoving it up their nose.
Right? Like, who's buying this nonsense? Like, why is this still in business? It's ridiculous. It's terrible.
I had to reminisce last year, so I bought a bag.
Oh, yeah. So now I know. Now I know who's keeping this in business.
One bag. I didn't even need it all.
That's all they needed. Pushed them over the top on their profit margins. They're like, let's keep making them. Is our Peeps a real candy, or are Peeps just sponges covered in glitter dust?
Glitter dust, I love it. They're definitely sponges covered in glitter dust. But if you give me 2 graham crackers and some chocolate and a fire, now we're talking.
All right. So speaking of which, when you toast your marshmallow, do you go lightly toasted? Do you go full on charcoal briquette that you can peel the charcoal off, eat that, and then have the gooey, ooey, slimy right there?
Oh yes, just shove it right in the fire. Just let it, watch it go. Whoosh,
yes,
and then blow it out. Oh, that's the best.
Yes, peel that charcoal crust off, right? Yeah. And your hands are dirty, but then what's left is super gooey. It's it's perfect.
Oh yes,
I am so down with that. By the way, we've been told more than once about Peeps that, one, let them get stale and then they're good. And my response to that is, so you want me to make something that's bad even worse and then think it might taste good? I don't think so. Then the other thing was, put toothpicks in the beaks of the Peeps, put them in the microwave and let them joust with each other as they melt. I guess the toothpicks like joust. I don't know.
Oh,
that's what I've been told.
That sounds like fun. Watch that.
Badwater06 says, how about candy corn shoved into a Peep? How about I just throw it straight into the garbage? Right there, right next to the pineapple on pizza slice that I'm not eating either.
Do that for the kids.
Exactly. Are you a fan of mac and cheese?
Love mac and cheese.
What if I told you I've never had mac and cheese in my entire life?
Oh my gosh. No.
Never.
What? How is that even possible?
My mother never made it growing up for me. And it's gotten to the point, I turned 50 years old last year. And it's at the point now, I'm like, you know what? Fuck it. I've never done it. I'm not going to do it. I don't care what anybody says. You know, it's like my point of pride. This is the hill when people say that's the hill I'm dying on, this is the hill I'm going to die on. Zero mac and cheese ever.
Oh.
But Kraft, if you want to sponsor our show, I'm more than happy to take your money.
Yes. Oh my God, that's funny.
All right. You're about to get blasted off into space with Matt Damon, which you know means you're only going to be eating sweet potatoes for the rest of your life. So what is the last meal you're eating before you get into that ship with Matt Damon?
Yeah. That last meal. I've talked about this before, and I remember what I said before, and I thought about it afterwards. I'm like, yeah, that sounded nice, but not a great last meal. So I'm going to switch my answer from before, and I'm going to go back to my original thought on this, which was a nice steak dinner with asparagus on the side, not a mashed potato, asparagus on the side and a salad. That's it.
Is this going to be something that's cooked at home, or are you going to a restaurant for this last meal?
Oh, that's a great question. I think I'd like to cook it at home.
What kind of steak? T-bone, filet, porterhouse, tomahawk?
Yeah, I like my New York strip.
New York strip.
Yeah, like my New Yorker. Got to stick with that New York strip.
That's right. Oh, that's right. I forgot you're a New Yorker, Central New York. Coming to us. No wonder you don't want pineapple on your pizza. Should have known the answer to that question.
Yeah, I would not be allowed to go back home if I had pineapple on my pizza.
Tell me about it. Like, So I was in Manhattan just last week, and I walked past, the pizza. I call them pizza closets because it's a storefront, and you can't fit anybody in there, and all there is in there is a pizza oven and the guy behind the counter, right? And I actually saw that there was half a pie in the display with pineapple on it, and I was like, "Yeah, I'm not buying from this guy." I just walked right on by him. I do not support this.
I can't get on board, man.
So funny. Last question for you. Tray of brownies comes out. Are you heading to the edge so you get a little bit of crust, or are you going to the middle where you get the more ooey gooey portion?
Oh, I am an edge for sure. Love that crispy, crunchy edge with a little bit of the gooey on the other side. I like best of both worlds.
Are you a person who put nuts on their brownie? No nuts.
No nuts.
What about ice cream, a la mode style?
Yeah, if it's fresh out of the when it's fresh out of the oven and the brownie's hot, and you put the ice cream on top and it melts. Oh yeah.
What flavor ice cream are you putting up there?
French vanilla.
All right. So here's your challenge before the next time we talk. Get yourself a tray of brownies. That should be the easy part.
Yep. Oh yeah.
And get yourself some coffee ice cream. But put the brownie in a coffee mug, and then put the coffee ice cream on top of the brownie in the coffee mug. And the reason why you have to do it this way is because as the ice cream melts, it's essentially going to make like a mocha for you. And it is unreal. It is unreal.
Definitely going to try that. Oh my gosh.
We've got 2 more comments from Badwater06. So they write, will Matt Damon enlighten me with the mathematics that his character knew in Good Will Hunting? He might. I mean, you're going to be in a rocket ship on Mars growing potatoes. He might ask you, do you like sweet potatoes? How about these sweet potatoes instead of apples?
How do you like them sweet potatoes?
How do you like them? And so there was a skit one time, I forget who did it, and it was like, what if the guy was like, no, I actually prefer bananas. Like, what is Matt Damon's response then? Oh, okay, sorry. The other question they wrote is, are the brownies the kind I ate when I was attending Humboldt State? I don't know what kind of brownies you ate at Humboldt State, but if it's a brownie, it's probably damn good.
I think what he's referring to is the
oh, yes. Enjoy those, dude. And make sure you definitely have a lot of ice cream around and some chips too while you're at it. Jamie, thank you so much for joining me today on this fireside chat, and good luck to you. It's next week is when you'll be racing in Omaha, Nebraska at the USAT National Championships in the super sprint, and team duathlons. Good luck to you. Safe travels there, and we'll catch you when you get back. Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you too. It's been a pleasure.
We'll see you.
All right.